Today we're working on the fifth movement from Violet Archer's 6 Miniatures for Viola and Piano, titled Dark Mood. Welcome back. Welcome to the studio. My name is Cassie and I'm a professional violist and teaching artist. Today we're working on the fifth movement titled Dark Mood, and first I want to go over the two scales that are at the beginning of our page. So both of these scales are in the Phrygian mode, and if you want to review what the modes are, I covered that in the first movement of this piece, and I'll post that above and below in the comments. So we're going to play the very first scale, which is C Phrygian. And this is like a natural minor scale with a flat or lowered second. So instead of playing D natural, we're going to play D flat. So let's just do that first octave. We're going to start on open C, low 1, D flat, low 2, low 1, low 2, and let's go back down, low 2. So I mentioned that this is like natural minor, and there's 3 different types of minor. Natural is what we would usually play on a descending version of the melodic scale. But in other words, if I didn't use D flat, it would be a natural minor scale. So if you want to think of it that way, if that's helpful, then please do that. So this scale uses 2 different versions of Phrygian. At the beginning, it's that C Phrygian, and then about halfway through the piece, we switch to D Phrygian. So let's do that scale. We're going to start with our first finger on the C string. Low 2. So we're going to encounter this scale in measure 13, and actually we don't use the C string or the lower octave version of that. We also use the upper octave version of that. So we're going to do that same scale, but we're going to start on the lower first finger and continue up for 2 octaves. So I'll call out the notes as we get there. So I'm starting with first finger on D. We're going to do all 2 octaves. Low 2. Down C, B flat, A, G, F, E flat, C, low 2. You may have noticed that for both the C and the D Phrygian, our finger pattern on both strings is the same. So for example, for the C Phrygian, I have a low 1 and a low 2 on both strings. For the D Phrygian, I just have a low 2 on the bottom 2 strings and a low 1 on the top 2 strings. So it can be helpful to organize your scale in patterns just to kind of keep it organized essentially in your head. So now that we've gone through those 2 scales, we're going to do our slow talk through of the piece, and then we'll do an at-tempo playthrough. If you want to skip ahead to that, I do put those timestamps in the comments below, so check ahead for the playthrough. So we're going to start at the very beginning, and because I only have an 8th note here, I'm going to start in the middle of my bow. I don't need a whole bow for that down bow. And definitely use 4. There's that low 1. Now I'm going to shift here to 3rd position so I can vibrate that G. You can use open G, that's totally fine. I just want to be a little bit more expressive on that note, so I'm shifting to 3rd position here. And this line indicates that I don't want to just continue to hold that G for 2 beats. I'm going to hold for 1.5 on the first note, 1 and 2, and then re-articulate. Now I'm shifting back down to 1st position. 1, We've crescendoed to forte here. Rearticulate. And diminuendo. There's a few other things that we encountered in this beginning part of the piece that I wanted to go over. So we talked about that tenuto, or the line underneath the note, which means to rearticulate it. And we see that a couple of times. We see that in the third measure, and we also see it in the eighth measure. So make sure if you see a line under the note, it means to slightly stop your bow, rearticulate the note, and then continue on. We also have a crescendo here. So at the end of the first line, going into the second line, we're crescendoing from mezzo forte to forte. So we want to make sure that I actually wrote an additional crescendo in my part just to remind myself. You might want to do that in your part as well. And the last thing I want to talk about is subdividing. So I'm going to actually set my metronome on 56, which is what's indicated in the piece. But I'm not going to use this as the on beat. I'm going to use it as the off beat because we have a lot of hidden beats in this. So when I start my count at the beginning, this will be the and, not the one. And 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So it gives it just a little bit of a different feel. I'm feeling those off beats as opposed to just feeling the beat. Because we have a few dotted quarter notes in this particular section, it can be really easy to kind of skip through those or not count them correctly. So if you're struggling with feeling those off beats, the hardest part is getting started with your metronome and saying and on the click as opposed to one. So practice it that way and see if it helps you feel those hidden off beats. I'm going to continue on to the second part of the piece at letter J. This is actually the same exact thing as we have at the beginning, but we've moved to the different Phrygian. We were in D Phrygian here, not just C Phrygian. So at the beginning, it's the same exact melodic line. I'm going to start on my open D string, and the dynamic here is marked forte, so I'm going to be a little bit stronger, but still in the upper half of the bow. 1 and 2. I'm shifting again. One last time to third position. So that I can vibrate that last note. Again, you don't have to do that last shift. If you want to, you can. I'm just doing that so I can vibrate my last note. So nothing really all that new in that second half. We've kind of covered everything in the beginning because the melodic lines are so similar. I also want to talk quickly about vibrato in this piece. A lot of people advocate vibrating every single note. And there was this really great quote I heard that vibrato on every note is like putting ketchup on every single food that you eat. It should be used kind of as an additive, not as a I eat it with everything kind of idea. So the longer notes that we have here, I'm definitely going to advocate using vibrato on those. So for instance, at the beginning, I'm not necessarily going to vibrate those eighth notes, but I will vibrate this longer note, this longer note, this longer note. So every long note, we're going to use vibrato as a means of extending the line. So sometimes when we have long notes, it can kind of die. And you might want to think of this as if you were singing the line, ba-da-da-da. You wouldn't want to take a huge breath there. You want to continue the line, and the vibrato can help that. So I'm going to play it without vibrato, and I'm going to exaggerate just so you see what I mean. So the melodic line kind of just dies out. It's as if we were taking that breath there, but with vibrato, the melodic line can continue. So if you're not comfortable using vibrato, I did do a tutorial on that, and I'll also post that in the comments below. but vibrato can really help liven up or richen up the sound here, so really use it especially on those longer notes. So I'm going to set my metronome now to 56, and I'll count full measure plus the beat and a half of rest that we have at the beginning before we begin. 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2. Next entrance, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2. Thanks so much for joining me on this movement. I hope it was helpful. If there's anything that I didn't address or questions that you still have that are lingering, please post those in the comments below. I really enjoy trying to help from afar. And as always, happy practicing.